NASA says this gift time is the best opportunity to pay attention on Venus. This follows the brand new disclosure of feasible existence on Earth. At the off chance which you by some means ended up taking a observe NASA's records from the 60s, you'd see the space organization calling Venus a planet of punishment. On the same time, Mars transformed into our foreordained goal. Such careful naming of the most distant planets wasn't uncommon at some point of the furious area race period. The Soviet Union was focused on sending luxurious missions to Venus. The dreadful planet showed practically no possibilities for existence, yet the Soviet space program failed to decommission the Venera application till the autumn of the Soviet Union. Way to Neil deGrasse Tyson, we sooner or later realize why. Join us as we ruin down the declassified pictures from Venus taken by the Soviet Union. The autumn of the Soviet Union changed into dynamic in greater methods than one, notwithstanding the fact that it altered the global direction of the arena. But the lack of the realm also sank diverse secrets and techniques with it. The reality that the Soviets had an enormous prejudice for secrets, from running the maximum great intelligence corporation on this planet to being mysterious about their extraterrestrial contact, means the former superpower holds special secrets inside itself. Earlier than the USA of the US ruled maximum planetary endeavors in space, the Soviet Union became main the game. Whilst the area has a protracted history of successful and unprofitable area missions, its best recognition was at the indoors horrible planet Venus. Within the Russian language, you'd see Venus as Venera, therefore the ensuing name of the mission that spanned from 1961 to 1983. Throughout the equal time, the US was busy sending its missions to the moon, so in an unusual way, the Soviets decided to apply their assets elsewhere. We cannot say that the whole obsession with the second planet from our solar is unusual. Did the Soviets assume to apply the planet's surface as a fun and fantastic military established order? Or were they possibly hoping to colonize the planet after looking for any kinds of life up there? It is extremely tough to mention why the Soviets had been centered on the dreadful planet. Considering they named those examination excursions for the duration of the bloodless battle, they weren't exactly drawing close with their locations and targets. In all honesty, all that we realize approximately the Venusian missions is primarily based on declassified and unarchived proof. Even then, it's difficult to pinpoint what the Soviets had been seeking out and if they ever discovered the mysteries of Venus. The Soviets did not land on Venus as soon as twice or even 3 instances. It's just easy. The Soviets launched 28 luxurious rockets to the stunning planet, and 13 of these entered the Venusian air whilst 8 landed. These complicated missions had positioned the Soviets in a main role in area exploration. Certain America of the USA was a near 2D, but NASA changed into extra captivated by means of satellites and innovative arrangements than discovering existence on planets. Its consciousness on Mars got here some time later. Neither in particular high quality nor especially terrible, your history textbook might not let you know this, but the Soviet area application changed into the first corporation to send a probe into the surroundings of a planet aside from Earth. It also had some other heap of firsts on its resume. The America became the primary kingdom to gain a smooth touchdown on some other planet, and it brought back pics and sounds from the floor of any other planet. This is right. The Soviets had their own one small step for Guy, one large leap for mankind second well before the US. So why can we simplest now and again hear about such achievements? Take into account what we said about the Soviet bias for maintaining secrets and techniques. That is handiest one of the many causes for the oversight of the Soviet area application. Lower back in 1992, the famous enterprise changed into decommissioned in the aftermath of the US, and the organization had to be restored with a brand new Russian identity. Roscosmos. Quite a few its ancient facts become both misplaced or destroyed. That is precisely why we don't have a clear answer for why the Soviets launched 28 rockets into the Venusian atmosphere. Anyway, if we had to make the most reasonable bet, perhaps the Soviet choice to take a look at Venus become about cost-performance extra than something else. It's now not to say the GAP program wasn't concerned approximately the viability of the planet. They have been searching out prudent water presence, the pressure of sun radiation, and the overall traits of the planet. Without a chain of these area missions, it were almost not possible to gauge Venus' high temperatures and thick environment. Nowadays, various cosmologists strive not to accept as true with that the shocking planet should guide lifestyles. The temperatures there are high sufficient to soften lead, and water is scarce. Moreover, because of its thick surroundings, the climatic strain on Venus is in many instances that of Earth. But those are extremely current traits, and to miss the America's contribution to the look at a Venus is equal to changing history. As a ways, because the Soviets were involved, Venus became well worth exploring, even though it was just to stir up the gap race. You notice, studying greater reasonable planets like Mars wasn't precisely off the table, but it become extra highly priced than sending probes to Venus. The entirety just comes all the way down to the space from Earth to every other celestial body. Uncommon, the dreadful planet is handiest 40 million kilometers away from our home, while Mars, uncommon, is 250 million kilometers away. Such huge differences in distance quantity to extreme variations in phi. If the US wasn't the world's largest economic system, it'd never were smooth to observe Mars. Various reviews suggest that Soviet missions had been complex and had big technical gaps. Of direction, the spacecraft were not in shape to cover countless distances, and the Enterprise had a negative records of dropping contact with its rockets. So it makes experience why the Soviet area application changed into selecting a shorter and closer adventure that could yield effects. However, if we do not forget the space race on this context, the tale of the Venera missions might be incomplete. The US wasn't even on the space map while the Soviet program released the first artificial satellite TV for PC, Sputnik 1, in 1957. This pass intensified the distance tussle and maintained Soviet dominance. Anyway, what's genuinely interesting is the cause why the US targeted at the Moon. Besides unknown factors, NASA had a series of screw-ups with its Venus missions in the course of the 1960s, so the US Space Organization ended up in a gridlock called the Venus Curse. On every occasion they launched a probe into the Venusian surroundings, it went badly. That is exactly when the Soviet Union saw an opportunity to make the most NASA's failures. On the time, both the US and the Soviets have been decided to win the space race. The maximum constant approach turned into to take advantage of two exceptional options. It became a victory. Very specifically, the Soviet area program seized Earth's sister planet as its most sizable success within the area tussle, accomplishing something that its main rival had forgotten to do. No matter the Soviet Union's confined resources and faltering authorities, it again and again released missions to Venus to secure its winning function towards the US, as opposed to specializing in NASA's middle of interest, the Moon. This critical division wasn't without competition and deceptive publicity to cover their most important disasters. With Venus precipitated the Yank business enterprise to discredit the USA's recognition on the Earth inside the media. Venus was dubbed the evil planet, at the same time as Mars have become man's destiny. Those names did not be counted to the Soviets. Their undertaking become to show superiority over the Americans, and that they weren't unsuccessful in doing so. The Venera missions are almost forgotten in present history, but notwithstanding their old beginnings, those missions have been extensively complicated, superior, and formidable. In fact, if we needed to select an event that marked the start of the distance age, the Venera missions might take the lead. Going again to the 1950s, the Soviets started out to test with the layout and technical information of the probes, and for the subsequent 30 years, they persevered to construct and launch interplanetary spacecraft as part of the Venera software. For the reason that application become walking along an exceptionally tumultuous bloodless conflict, the Soviets had been targeted on optimizing their resources. Fortuitously for them, the early years of the conflict provided them with extra actual technical paintings capacity than the US. This benefit grew to become out to be pretty useful in developing their abilities. The US commenced to gather and release large rockets designed to resist excessive altitudes and lengthy distances. The Soviets rushed to experiment with each manned and unmanned spacecraft, while the Soviet instructional community labored on a chain of computations and calculations to make specific instructions for the Venus missions. In the heritage, their Mars programs were also going for walks effectively. For the Soviet Area Agency, nothing became greater essential than developing complex instrumentation for those probes. This led to the biggest step forward in the records of space exploration. In 1966, the Soviet company launched Venera 3, making it the primary artificial probe to go into the environment of Venus and effectively connect with the planet's floor. This essential accomplishment escalated the competition between the two superpowers. In contrast to the Yank missions, which were encumbered with failures and gridlocks, the Soviet software persevered to make development. Regardless of the program's steady development, the United States controlled to send successful probes into the Venusian environment. The most essential trouble with this technique became limited design capacity. The Soviets speedily overcame their design problems and released the maximum state-of-the-art rockets of the Venera program in the 1970s. Their featuring potential allowed them to carry out the primary twin launches of Venera 4 and Venera 5. Consistent with Maximum historians, this became the most interesting decade inside the history of space exploration. Sincerely, the U.S. tried to come up with similar launch plans. So why did the Soviet enterprise pick out dual launches to Venus? To recognize this, you ought to understand that interplanetary travel requires advanced instrumentation to accumulate the most giant degree of facts and evidence. Of route, the spacecraft become first launched to have a look at the planet's floor. That is precisely what occurred with Venera 4. Since the launch went easily and the spacecraft entered the surroundings of Venus, the Soviet software moved ahead with Venera 5. It wasn't just a repetition of the primary release. The second spacecraft became in particular designed to collect new statistics about the planet. In this way, the Soviets meant to break through barriers of temperature, atmospheric strain, and radiation on Venus. They failed to should wait too lengthy for their solution. By using the mid-70s, the Soviet software became entering the most advanced length of the Venera missions. Everything the United States of America had achieved as much as that point was approximately research and improvement. It was approximately making sure that their designs and advancements have been optimized. It changed into additionally approximately perfecting the strategies and mechanics of interplanetary travel. But, for the second decade of Venera missions, the Soviet Union intended to conduct exploratory missions. The exceptional and most charming release of this era turned into Venera 7. Because the 11th Soviet probe entered Venus' atmosphere, it had become the first spacecraft to send records from another planetary surface. The planet's high temperatures, density, and surface pressures have been already referred to at this point. The Soviets had been seeking to file Venusian sounds. The subsequent predominant accomplishment for this system got here in the mid-1980s. Venera 13 had outperformed all previous interplanetary examinations in phases of complexity. This spacecraft turned into the first to seize full-color panoramic images of Venus' surface. At the same time, the Soviet program released Venera 14 to acquire similar statistics approximately the planet's surface. As the Soviet Union was arguably the primary United States of America to locate and understand Venus, the Russian Area Company has renewed its pursuits for Venus missions. VAD is a deliberate joint project among Roscosmos and NASA to take a look at the surroundings and surface of Venus. The acronym VAD in Russian is anticipated to mean enduring and is planned for release in the late 2020s or early 2030s. It targets to take a look at the planet's atmosphere, geological records, and look for signs of past or gift habitability. The spacecraft will consist of an orbiter, a lander, and probably an inflatable to look at the planet's surroundings in detail. The legacy of the Venera missions extends a ways beyond their technological accomplishments and global ramifications. These missions, started by means of the Soviet Union in the course of the peak of the bloodless struggle, represented a pinnacle of human imagination and backbone in exploring the universe. Despite facing severe demanding situations and difficulties, the Soviets pressed on of their challenge to uncover the secrets of Venus, a planet-lengthy concept to be adverse and inhospitable to lifestyles. One of the most critical components of the Venera missions changed into their pioneering use of robot probes to look at planetary atmospheres and surfaces. Those missions paved the manner for destiny exploration past Earth's neighborhood and laid the inspiration for our understanding of planetary science. The facts gathered via the Venera spacecraft provided precious insights into Venus' excessive environment, such as its scorching temperatures, crushing atmospheric pressure, and toxic atmosphere ruled with the aid of carbon dioxide. Furthermore, the technological advancements finished through the Venera software had broader implications for area exploration as a whole. The development of heat-resistant substances, robust communication systems, and reliable landing techniques had been pivotal achievements that contributed to subsequent missions to other planets, inclusive of Mars and beyond. The classes found out from the Venera missions retained to tell spacecraft design and operational strategies in current space exploration efforts. Past their scientific and technological significance, the Venera missions also had profound social and political outcomes all through the space race technology. These missions symbolized the competition between superpowers for dominance in area exploration. For the Soviet Union, succeeding within the Venera missions was no longer just about scientific discovery, but additionally about demonstrating technological prowess and philosophical superiority over the United States. The global community intently observed every Venera project, recognizing its importance in increasing humanity's knowledge of the Sun gadget. The gentle landing of Venera 7 on Venus in 1970 marked a chief success as the first spacecraft to ship facts from another planetary floor. This accomplishment showcased the Soviet Union's capacity to overcome the substantial challenges posed by means of Venus' harsh conditions. Further to scientific units, the Venera spacecraft carried cameras that captured the primary near-up photographs of Venus' floor. Those pics found out a rocky landscape ruled by using plains and volcanic functions, offering scientists with treasured insights into the planet's history and formation. The panoramic pictures taken via later missions, along with Venera 13 and 14, furthermore advantageous are information of Venus' floor morphology and shape. In spite of their successes, the Venera missions additionally faced their percentage of screw-ups and problems. A few missions either did not reach Venus or skilled technical malfunctions that averted them from transmitting data lower back to Earth. The challenges of operating in Venus' hostile environment, which includes severe temperatures exceeding 450 degrees Celsius (842 degrees Fahrenheit), and corrosive sulfuric acid clouds, pose significant engineering-demanding situations for spacecraft layout and operation. Though, the perseverance and dedication of Soviet scientists and engineers concerned in the Venera program paved the manner for future missions to Venus and different celestial bodies. The legacy of the Venera missions lives on inside the ongoing exploration of Venus through area corporations around the arena, including NASA's upcoming VAD project in collaboration with Roscosmos. Searching ahead, the VAD project targets to build upon the achievements of its predecessors by sending advanced devices to take a look at Venus' environment, floor topography, and potential symptoms of beyond or present habitability. The assignment represents a collaborative attempt to get to the bottom of the ultimate mysteries of Earth's closest planetary neighbor, and to enlarge our knowledge of the situations that could assist lifestyles past our very own planet.